What is the power of gratitude to you?
You have such a great feeling of peace come over you when you feel gratitude. It just really is such a reset button. You know, we're all irritated, we're all this, we're all that, but you're like, holy shit. You walk outside and it's nice. You're breathing fresh air. Oh man, I got a decent car. What am I going to do? I'm going to eat something. All these little things that you have gratitude for and be in the moment and appreciate it. It really just gives you a great feeling, a feeling like nothing else. Gratitude. It's the best gift you can give yourself. I know you think of gratitude is for others. No, it's for you. When you feel gratitude, you just feel at peace.
Welcome back to the Asset Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Fielding, former Green Beret, Special Forces, author of The Asset Mindset. And we're here today with a very special guest. And this episode is about transformation, not motivation. And we're going to find out how people are able to transform their lives from better or from worse to better. And yes, we all make mistakes, and that's part of it. And sometimes we go down the wrong roads in life, or we just make errors and then we fix. Today's special guest, we have David. If you don't like being called Davey, we've been talking a little bit, so I was feeling comfortable with you. David Yuzuk, the giant killer author. Amazing story. And let me tell you, if you've ever had a story that you didn't believe was true, and then you come to find out it is and shakes your world, well, I think that's something you're going to hear about today. So David, say hello and welcome to the Asset Mindset Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it's great to have you here. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a retired Miami police officer. I worked in the city of Aventura for 19 years. Before that, I grew up in New York, played college football, always was interested in law enforcement, always wanted to help people. I kind of think a lot of times people go into law enforcement for the wrong reasons. I hope I went in for the right to try to help people. It's not about, I never thought about it as sort of a job where you're just putting people in jail or chasing people. I just thought it would be something you could actually help people. And I did like the physical aspects of it initially as a young man, and then worked my way through the department into the detective bureau, working cases. And it was really, it gave me a great background to eventually transition into what I'm doing now, which is the writing.
Wonderful. So were there any particular times that you were like, whoa, this is really heavy, or something that you didn't expect from your law enforcement experience coming in that was shocking?
Well, I've spoken to Denny Caballero, and I spoke to other special forces guys, and the differences between law enforcement and special forces. And since your question kind of tees it up, I've always said, like, you guys get exposed to really harsh conditions in combat condensed in a year or two. You see horrible things, you get involved with your adrenaline things. While police is different, we do it kind of slowly over 20 years. So it might make it worse in one sense that we're always saying we're fine. You know, we're seeing things all day long in police work, and you're seeing negativity, and nobody's calling you when their day is going good. It's only when it's bad. So you really don't know what it's doing to you, the stress, and then what happens with cops. You know, a couple of years after they retire, a lot of heart issues and heart failure. And man, I worked for a small police department in Miami. Aventura, Miami broke up into different little cities. Each little city wanted its own little police force. So we had a 125-man group, but man, all the guys that I retired with, a lot of them just didn't make it. We had, unfortunately, suicide and a lot of heart issues. And just lost another guy this year, the greatest guy in the world, and he was a year or two away from retirement from heart issues. So that to me is the stress. It's that unknown stress. It's working in a nuclear power plant every day, and you don't realize you're getting radiation. And everyone's like, yeah, I'm fine. So when you ask me, well, what did you see? Well, if you asked me during my career, I would say, yeah, it's fine. I mean, yeah, I saw this, and this person was mangled in a car accident, and I saw this mom and daughter drown, but it doesn't really hit you. But, you know, this stuff catches up to you.
Yeah, I think it goes underrated or under the radar as far as you said it perfectly when people call you when it's a bad day. So you're constantly being exposed to, people that are doing bad things or things that are going wrong or when there's an emergency. So you're always seeing that aspect of the world, and that has to weigh on somebody. Was there anything you did to try and combat that as far as like decompress?
I know that I didn't pre-plan it, but I know that I didn't watch anything law enforcement wise when I would come home from work. Matter of fact, I'd watch completely the opposite. Anything with either it's just nature or the jackass guys. I just wanted to detach myself. The other lesson that I tell younger guys in law enforcement that are going in or they're halfway through their career is don't get caught in the trap of working off duty. So you become a cop, you buy a house, you get married, now you're working off duty and overtime on your days off, which is really not giving you that chance to decompress. Those days off are beyond critical for law
Mm,
enforcement. And I imagine with first responders, with firemen and things like that. Don't get caught in that trap where you want a second job to make money, do it something outside. You should not be in that uniform more than 5 days a week. And it just because you're going to get stuck once in a while in overtime. You're going to get stuck. There's a hurricane or emergency or there's some sort of riot and you get pulled in. But you got to limit your amount of time in that uniform. So when you go back to work, you're a little bit fresher because I see guys in the red line. I wish my department, I've always talked about like a red line program where you have a secret voting thing where like each guy gets one or two his whole career and it's the guy's vote. Like, a guy, when he's in that red line, he's going through a divorce. He needs to not be punished, but taken off the road. Maybe we give him a vacation for a week. All the cops chip something because you'll always, I mean, it's a long career, it's 25 years. So
mhm.
you're going to see people, their spouse has cancer and they're in that red line, but they're still working on the road. And that's when problems happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. And the other thing that, I think is really difficult is, we had ROE when we were downrange, but your ROE is totally different dealing with American citizens and living amongst the people. Like you
Yeah.
probably lived somewhere close by the town where you worked, right?
Sure.
So you're like living in the environment
I
full
l
time.
Yeah, I lived in the town I worked, and our environment, listen, urban fighting for guys, Fallujah. We actually had a U.S. Marine that fought in Fallujah. I mean, it's really because now when I come home, my house is where I've done my battling and fighting. You go to somebody's house, they're having a domestic or a mental, you don't know where the weapons are, and things just in a second
Mhm.
just go from, regular to crazy. Or, somebody wants to hurt themselves and they're going to take you with them. And it can just go off in a second and it's inside homes. It's inside. So it just, maybe that's why, like, it took me years not to, and that old cliche, sleeping with your gun under your pillow. I did. And I mean, it's on the nightstand, but it's not under my pillow. A lot of the things are starting to calm down with me after retiring, but I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. What do you think was the biggest toll that was just hitting you while you were in and you didn't realize it?
Well, for people outside of law enforcement, there's actually a lot of internal stress. I never really took it too much of an insult. If a bad guy in the street tried to run me over, take a shot at me, he doesn't know me. It's just business. But, when you're working with people for 25 years, friendships, you look at them like family when there's some sort of backstabbing like that, and you'll see that in every job in every place. It becomes very personal and very stressful to me. Or if you feel like there's a supervisor that's abusing their power or not there for the right reasons. I think to me the most stressful thing is people in law enforcement for not the right reasons. That to me is like that's the job you cannot. It's the one job you can't have people in there for the wrong reasons.
So what are some of the wrong reasons people go into law enforcement?
Power, power,
Mhm.
insecurity. And I mean, we test for everything. Going to the police academy, we have lie detectors, but insecure people, people that maybe didn't challenge themselves before they were cops. Like I would like to see a more balanced person who's challenged himself physically, took on really hard tasks mentally. Otherwise, you do have that issue of hey, I'm going to prove myself once I have a gun and badge. It's not really what the job is
Mm.
about for you to try to show how tough you are. Once you, the job is about helping people. So I saw a lot of that, and I kind of take that my background. I kind of grew up in a little bit of a rough area in New York, which I made a lot of mistakes as a young man, and I think it's important for a cop to have made mistakes because else, otherwise, how can you, you're going to judge everybody because you were perfect. So I think that's important. I played a very competitive level of college football to pay my way through college. I was working security in some nightclubs, and by the time I became a cop, I didn't wanna hurt anybody, put my hands on anybody. I knew exactly what I'm capable of, what I'm not capable of. There was no ego. So I can walk in
Mm.
and talk to somebody without an ego because I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not worried you're gonna harm me. It's possible, but most likely I'll be able to defend myself. So I just think that makes a much more stable cop than a guy who was kinda bullied in high school, never, took up a martial art, of boxing, never took up some sort of challenge, and you just get them as a cop, and it's a difficult job because you gotta wear so many different hats. We only think of the physical aspects, guns, fighting, but I mean, there's a lot of counseling, there's a lot of legal stuff you have to know. It's just it's really, I mean, I've started learning more about special forces from my little journey, and your special forces are just a lot more targeted to certain things. Your Navy SEALs are maybe for one. Green Berets, obviously the Swiss Army knife. They can do kind of everything. The thinking man, but there's specialties. But with the cops, we have to do everything. It's what's expected, and I'm not saying that as any excuse for any bad behavior. I'm just saying that there's a lot that goes into it, and you really need a balanced human being before. To me, like, common sense honesty, number 1, balance, and a common sense person, makes a good cop.
Yeah, people have to stay grounded. So what would you if you were, like, doing one of your speaking events and there was, say it was a graduation at a police academy, what advice would you give these new cadets that are becoming officers?
Your career is a marathon, it isn't a sprint. Take your time. Make sure you understand all the laws. Because when you stop somebody and you're not familiar with a certain law, or you maybe overstep your bounds, you really have to respect people's rights, and you better know them better than the people. Take your time, slow yourself down. It's not a rush. The police departments you work for don't owe you anything but a paycheck. Sometimes we think, oh my God, I was officer of the month last month. I made 30 arrests. I saved it. Now the department owes me. It's a bad thing. The department doesn't owe you. They pay you a paycheck. You're an employee. The people you work with, they could be great friends, but they're not your family. Your family is your family. It's probably a little bit better to go into law enforcement with more of a friendly attitude than he's my best friend or she, don't date anyone in your police department. I've seen a lot of, guys and girls get themselves into trouble that way. I don't think it's a good idea. I understand life, it happens. And there was a couple, really nice couple that met and they're still married and they're doing great from my department. So it's possible, but I mean, this is your career. Take it really serious. Take it slow. Have patience when you go out on the road. My little trick was I turned myself into a robot. Not that I didn't care, but whatever they threw at me, they weren't talking to me. They don't know David. They're throwing whatever name they call me, they're calling a guy in a uniform all these names. So I never took any of it personally. And just, also the thing I mentioned earlier about the red line, if you're beyond stress before you get into work for, your house got flooded, whatever it is, you really need to call your sergeant or whoever it is and say, "Give me a few days off. I'm not ready," because you're gonna make a mistake.
That's good advice. So how do you think that could be conveyed to the average person that's out there in life so they don't make mistakes?
I think, I mean, we live in a time where, man, everyone needs to get their answer out first. Everyone needs to get the news out. I think we all need to slow ourselves down, be a little bit more patient, be a little bit more understanding. The guy you're having a fight with in the parking lot, maybe his wife has cancer. Maybe that's why he's lost his mind. Everybody needs to back up a little bit. And I don't mean back up in a sorry, my back's a little off. I don't mean back up in a cowardly way, but I mean just give a couple of steps back to somebody sometimes just to let them catch themselves. The other thing tool that I always believed in as a cop is no matter what you're doing, I'm starting at 0. I show up to the scene and you're screaming and yelling. If I scream and yell, we're at 10 already. So I start at 0. I say, "Hey, man, come on. Just give me a second and let me introduce myself." Hey, "Oh, fuck you. Come on, man. Let's just always try to start at 0." So I'm talking to people about de-escalating situations. It's not just police. You're going to be regular citizens are going to be in situations they have to de-escalate. So that would be some of my advice. Just try to have more patience for each other. I think social media has all its little bubbles, and they have algorithms that send people the same information, and it's usually off of hatred. And I think all need to take a step back. And people are making money on all these platforms, the social media sites, the Facebooks and the Instagrams, but there are algorithms that are targeting you for a certain bubble. If you're only listening to information in that bubble, you don't have a good sense of the world. You should be talking to people in your bubble that have completely opposite, ways of seeing the world. In my opinion, when you're with a bunch of people that only agree with you, you're not growing as a person. So you shouldn't be afraid to have people in your group that don't think exactly like you, look exactly like you, because otherwise you're just a lemming, you're a follower.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And what I'm seeing, a lot of your advice comes down to self awareness,
Yeah.
like being aware of the situation, how you're reacting. Can you maybe give some tips or tricks on self awareness?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the few things that is in our control. I mean, the minute you leave your house, you don't know what's going to happen. So what do you have besides your self control? And we all have the blind sides, or the where you get tunnel vision, where the tunnel vision never helps you in any situation, whether it's dealing with your spouse or it's dealing with a situation in a parking lot. The more calm and more relaxed you are, the better you're going to handle any situation. And um, I think energy brings other forms of energy. If you're putting out that nasty vibe, it's going to come back to you, and you're probably not going to like it. So I'm trying to always, every day, I always try to reset myself. Um, there was a quote in a movie about power. I can't remember the movie, but power is not having the ability to do something to somebody, or physically or mentally or whatever, or financially. Power is having the ability and you choose not to. That's real true power. So I would hope people would, whatever position, if you're a CEO of a company, yeah, you could fire everybody, but that's not power. Power is you could, but you try to help them first.
No, that's really great sound advice. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think you got a lot of knowledge and experience. And I'm proud of you for putting yourself out there and speaking about things, coming on podcasts, writing. I want to get into the writing. How did you start getting involved with writing?
So police officers, we're constantly writing. When you start out as a road patrolman, you do offense incident reports, what happened that day, what happened, then you have your arrest reports. But then when you get into the detective bureau, you're writing narratives. If because
Mm.
you're going to have to go to court with these cases, whether it's solved or not, you're still going to have to go to court. And those narratives really are similar to books, or that is really the way I wrote my books. Is I just followed the police narrative. Okay, on this date and time, this happened. Then I went to there, and then I spoke to this person, and this person told me this, and just keep moving forward with the story. So it kind of the way you write as a detective, that you can have your notes for court, is kind of the way people, I think, like to take in information. Um, the writing started for me really strange. I mean, I've always thought about writing, but never you know, the hardest thing, people come up to me, "I wanna write a book, but I don't know how to start." That's it. That's everybody's thing. Like, "I wanna write a book, but how do I start?" Well, I became friends with a homeless guy in my city, Aventura, a tiny homeless guy, 4'9" homeless guy on the streets, and friendly in the sense that, you just see him and a wave and a nod, and I wasn't 100% sure he was homeless, 100% homeless when I met him, because I would see him going into the movies, so maybe he just spent his whole days in the movies because he didn't like his apartment. I didn't know. But then later I started seeing him on the streets, and it was after 15 years. And I don't know if you're familiar with the story, Daniel, but it's after 15 years. He said, "Hey, I got to tell you who I really am." And I was, like, uh-oh, what's he going to tell me? And he told me that he was the smallest special forces soldier ever served in the military. He served with the 101st Airborne and with the 3rd Special Forces Group 46 Company in Thailand. He told me he received the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, and 2 Purple Hearts. I mean, it's just a lot of information to throw on me in one day, on top of the fact, legally, if you look at the definition of what dwarfism is, it's anyone under 4'9" for medical or genetic condition, which he theoretically is a dwarf. So how is a homeless dwarf telling me he's a Green Beret and he's a war hero? And then he told me about undercover operations, and he told me don't look into undercover operations at Fort Bragg, and it's going to be bad for my career, dangerous for his health. It's just, one of those crazy stories that you couldn't even believe 1% of it. But I went home and I checked online. I Googled, hey, who's the smallest man to serve in the military? And his pictures popped up. As far as who was the smallest man, they really never kept records. I've seen a few World War II guys that were pretty short, but I don't know if technically he's certainly the smallest special forces soldier and special forces officer. As far as could there have been a kid or something throughout history in Civil War, World War I, maybe, but he's probably pretty close. Now there is a kid that just made it through the Marines, 4'7". I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but it came out a few years ago, and he quoted that he wasn't sure if he can do it, but he heard the story about this guy Richard Flaherty, the giant killer, and he's like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So that's kind of what got my foot started in the writing, because Richard did say to me that he wanted me to get his story out to the world, which I interpreted as find him a reporter or find him somebody who can document this properly, because I'm a full-time police officer. How am I going to do it? I never wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
But then 10 days after he told me a story, he got killed in a hit and run, and I just took it upon myself to complete the investigation and then tell his story.
No, we're so glad you did. Our community is super grateful, man. You're in SF, brotherhood, Facebook groups, and, I've been following that story for a while now, and it's pretty incredible. I think I've even seen some video of you sitting down with him. I
Yeah.
think there's the CCTV
Yeah,
of the two of you. Yeah, yeah.
That was from
So,
Subway. Yeah, that was from Subway the 10 days before he was killed. And we'd go for coffee and lunch and everything like that. It's interesting, before the internet, I did, when it initially started reaching out to some people, and I did, they're like, well, it's impossible. I was a Green Beret. I would have heard of him. You think he would have been heard of, but it's weird that he did kind of fly under the radar. Later, once the documentary came out in the book, yeah, people, hey, ran into an airport. Yeah, I served with him here. Yeah, I did some private contract work. But at the time, it seemed like an anomaly, but it really had to do because there really wasn't much internet. 15 years ago, people were really, their information was not on there. So whoever was in his small bubble knew of this tiny little guy. Everyone else was like, that's not true. That can't be true.
So what was it like first hearing that story from him? Because you being an officer, you've run into all different types of people that lie, make up stuff, bullshit, whatever. So what was that initial reaction or impression you got?
Just sadness. I was sad because I was friends with him for 15 years, and I just thought he was delusional, and just really deep off the chart delusional. Because before that, we would talk a lot about the world and politics, and he had great predictions on what would come next. And he even predicted, I talked about this like 5 years ago, that eventually America would invade Venezuela. And I was like, why? He goes, yeah, because of the oil. And he used to go do private military contract in Venezuela, and he worked for, before Bushmaster Rifle became Bushmaster, the name of it. It was a special forces guy who started the company. He was in sales for them, selling arms. And legally, he was selling arms to a lot of the Venezuelan generals and contractors. So he had a real knowledge about the world.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you just thought he was some guy on the streets.
Yeah. I mean, a million people passed him every day. He sat, under a tree. He lived under a tree. Like, who would think that this is one of the most incredible heroes, America's smallest hero, certainly, out there. It just, how could it be? How can he be just sitting right here? How could the world not know about this treasure? And he had his PTSD, and he never really got proper treatment. He probably self-medicated with alcohol. I've only seen him, like, kinda slurring once or twice, but no drugs, but he drank. Um, and that's kinda how he did it. People ask me all the time about him being homeless and why didn't you put him in your house? You couldn't put Richard Flaherty in a house. He wasn't, it's not a cat you find in the street. He's a badass
Mhm.
Green Beret who knew what he was doing. There's
Yeah.
no Richard was not a little cat that you found outside, a lizard or frog, you bring him in your house.
Hmm.
He was a tough, tough, tough dude, and he wanted to live life on his own terms. The thing that gets a little gray is, if he is he homeless because he mentally is so off, or is he homeless because that's just his choice? And he's just like,
Hmm.
"Fuck this. I don't, I can sleep under a tree and I can eat
Yeah.
snakes and bugs and I don't give a shit." There's a story that came out so many years later about him, and the stories keep coming. I love to get them through my social media pages, of a guy who went to high school with him, and a group of guys flew to Miami Beach, and Richard was just getting out of the military. Maybe he was 23. But so the guy didn't know Richard Flaherty. He said the doorbell rang at this apartment they were renting in Miami Beach. And this tiny little high school kid is standing there, fresh faced kid, tiny. But that was, at that time, he was a 23-year-old Green Beret who just went through 2
Yeah.
tours. But that guy didn't know it. They went out to Miami Beach. They were drinking and partying. He actually jumped on stage with BB King. BB King was playing. He got carried off the stage, Richard, but he partied. But that's not the strange part of the story. Was at the end of the night, they had a limo drive them around. The end of the night, Richard wouldn't go back to the apartment to sleep with them. He actually asked them to drop him off in the park. He wants to sleep in the park.
Hmm.
So I imagine that PTSD was already kicking in pretty bad.
Yeah. No, I can understand that a lot. It's like, I don't want to deal with all the bullshit. I can just live in the wild.
Yeah,
Like, I don't need a roof over my head. Yeah. If it's going to rain, I'll figure some shelter or
yeah,
go under a bridge. But like, we sleep in so many different places and on hard objects or dirt or in the rain. Heck, I remember sleeping in a thunderstorm, with just a poncho. I took my ruck off, sat on it like it was a seat, draped the poncho on it, and the poncho was the tent. Like my body was the tent structure, and me and my whole group of guys, that's what we did until the thunderstorm ended,
yeah,
and I can see where people like him, especially Vietnam era. I mean, these guys were in the jungle and it was it was rough. I was blessed to have two mentors or instructors when I came through, because I came through um 2003, 2004 in the special forces. And like it was a blessing to have those Vietnam guys, but
yeah,
boy, were they hard.
yeah, yeah,
And you'd hear stories, you'd be like, yeah, okay. And then like, no, like the Viet Cong almost peed on you. Like you
yeah.
were laying there in your fighting position, buried in, hiding, and like the guy walked over to the tree next to you and like almost urinated on you. Like,
That's
whoa,
that's a
like that's
great
close.
that's a great story. It reminded me of a guy who took me under his wing when I started investigating Richard's story, Captain Rick Lencioni, from the 101st Airborne, and he served with Richard in Vietnam, and we had a chance in his backyard. He lived in Tampa, but it was like by like very foresty jungle area. And I said, "Well, let's walk a little trail back there. I want to see what you." So as we're walking the trail, he's pointing out. He goes, "You see that tree over there, 4 feet away? A VC could be standing right there." Many times we just start shooting, jump into the bushes, and it's over. And like it doesn't hit you until you see how close that dude was, and you guys are shooting at each
Hmm.
other, and it's on for 5 or 7 seconds, and it's gone. And I'm like, holy shit, is that like when he pointed that out to me of how, because, a couple of feet in front of you in a jungle is can't see. So
Yep.
it was a very spooky way of fighting. I'm not saying trench warfare was great either in World War II,
Hmm.
but just to be walking through jungles and just not knowing what's going to hit you next, there's no off button on your adrenaline. I guess in a trench, theoretically, you can hear shots and bombs coming, but the jungle, you probably have to be locked on all the time, on top of booby traps, on top of animals, spiders, and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some tough dudes.
Yeah, and so for him to come back and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna live in a park," that's,
Right. In America,
he's
where right, I'm not worried about people shooting at me. There's no booby traps in here. Like, what do I give a shit? This is easy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll hustle here and there for a little bit of money or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. I'll go
That's
watch a movie and go back to my park.
right. That's, I mean, the other thing people didn't realize is he was always clean. He always got his clothes washed. He was never not taking care of himself physically, although he was living under a tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what an amazing story.
Yeah.
So, what was it like writing his story? Like for you, what did you go through? What'd you learn as a person?
What I learned, which I had no background around, was my respect for the military and how they took me in. Those guys didn't have to speak to me. Green Berets is John Stryker Meyer. Somebody gives me this
Mm,
number. There's this guy, John Stryker. The fuck's John Stryker? That guy is one of the most badass dudes, MACV saw guys, and just call him up and said, "Hey, I'm a cop. I'm trying to find about this information, everything." So many incredible people reached out and just offered a hand from the military. And that's, I kind of really want to give back to the military because even cops have to have heroes.
that's nice. Well, you guys are pretty amazing too. I mean, it's incredible. I have a couple good buddies that are cops, and it's the stress level. And I'm preaching to the choir. You know it. Like
Yeah.
we go on a deployment, and we come home. Yeah, there's still stress or whatever, but you guys don't. You're not redeploying anywhere.
Yeah.
Like you're in
Yeah.
your AO or
Yeah.
area of operations
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
and that
tough.
means you're always on guard when you're out with your family or you're going into a parking lot. You're always watching. Why is he looking at? I mean, you're really, because that is your urban environment. So you're always locked on, as opposed to maybe you're in Iraq or something. But
Yeah, that's tough. So you've written more than one book. So talk to me about the other books now that you have other than The Giant Killer.
so I released the Giant Killer. First, I actually made the documentary, The Giant Killer. I made the film first, and I wasn't going to write the book. I thought the film, because remember, I made a promise to the guy once I got that over with. But after I made the documentary very black and white in the sense that I didn't speculate on anything. Here are the
Mm,
facts. Now, I knew stuff, but I still didn't want to speculate. I said, here exactly are the facts. You decide. I didn't make Richard look like a hero. If there was some questionable stuff where they said he was kind of tough on the enemy, he really wasn't taking prisoners, I left it in. There's a story about him and that guy, Captain Rick Lencioni, pulling guns on each other in the base camp, seeing who's the alpha. Yeah, that could make my friend look real bad, but I felt I needed to tell the real story, not some bullshit story. But after the documentary, I was contacted around the world by all these people who said, I will tell you what he was doing in Rhodesia and Angola. I will tell you what he was doing in Venezuela. So I was compelled to write the book. And the book, man, if I don't even remember writing it now because it just must have flowed because I was just telling the story as it was actually happening. So that wasn't hard. But after that, I mean, like I said, I had such a respect for the military. I opened up these social media pages and I was writing stories about Richard Flaherty and giving, but how many stories of Richard Flaherty are you going to listen to? So I started looking at other vet stories and people recommending, hey, I know you're interested in Green Berets, you're interested in Navy SEAL story. Once I started getting into these shorter stories that I'd put on my social media sites, I kind of felt like, hey, I can release something because I think I understand what people want. I understand the slow parts of a story, the part that you just don't have time. And he went to high school and then he did that. Who cares? Just tell me why he went there, what he did. Let's get into it. So that's kind of what I wanted to write. A very trimmed down, no fat, no, you're just right there learning about why these people were heroes, why they earned the Medal of Honor, not earned, received. You're never supposed to say earned. I've learned so much, man. God, you call a Marine a soldier? Holy shit. You might as well. I mean, there's no worse insult in the world. Like, I didn't know, but once you learn, all the differences with the military, you're fine. But they're a stickler group. The military guys, they're you better make sure you double, triple check your information and how you write it, and because they are very, they look at the small things. But I wrote the second book, Giant Killers, War Heroes, and Special Forces Legends. I got beyond lucky to interview Medal of Honor recipient Gary Wetzel, who was a door gunner in Vietnam. And the first, I think his helicopter went down, and the first part of the fight, he lost his arm. It was dangling off. He fought for a couple of hours with one arm, taking out all sorts of enemy and pulling his guys in. And Gary's still up in Wisconsin, a great, great guy. He's on the cover of it because he deserves it. That's the most badass dude, there is. And in that, the photo of him, just like, that's a dude you don't mess with. So got really lucky, started out with Gary's story, and then I wrote about a bunch of other heroes. I really wanted to cover a little bit more of the people you didn't hear about. There was like the Audie Murphy, most amazing, greatest soldier ever, but it's been told so many times. I kind of wanted to hit some of the other guys. There's a guy, Pitzenbarger. There's a couple of the names that you probably haven't heard that are in that book. From that book, then every once in a while on my pages, I would write a story about the women, and I noticed, like, man, people really fight about, I tell a story about a Green Beret Navy SEAL, but when you write a story about an Army nurse or something in Vietnam, everybody gives you a positive comment because, these are people who are forgotten. And I felt so ashamed, like I'm thinking, yeah, man, Vietnam vets, they got screwed. They came home, nobody cared. What about the nurses? They're Vietnam vets. Nobody gave a shit about them. The guys got spit on. Yeah, well, what about the nurses who were putting the body parts together? What about the ones who saw the worst trauma ever? They come home to a country that doesn't want to talk to them either. They can't get jobs in hospitals because they were Vietnam vets. So I wanted to do their story. I got really, really lucky. A woman named Virginia Lee Dornhagen that served in Quy Nhon, Vietnam. She was my first interview, and then she introduced me to a few other nurses. And the book starts out with Vietnam nurses and a tribute to them and what they did and what they saw. And I've spoken openly about this. When I first went into law enforcement, I wasn't like, wow, women should be doing this job. I just, I had that thing, it's a guy's job, blah, blah, blah. I learned a lot. And I've talked about this before. I was in maybe the first year or two, I was in a pretty good fight outside of a supermarket. And we were rolling around doing pretty good. And my backup showed up, and there was this tiny little woman officer. Whatever she had, she jumped into the fight. I remember him kicking her like 5 feet away. But I'm fighting when I'm handcuffing. Whatever she had in her heart, she was given in the fight. And then I've seen a few of the big muscle guys in a few fights kind of hesitate, don't want to jump in, don't want to go hands-on. And I'm like, it's really about the heart. Yeah, it's nice. You're a big, strong guy and you can fight, but give me heart first over anything. So I have a lot more respect. This is Women's History Month. I have a lot more respect for the women. And then you also never think of it this way. Like, if you're a woman cop and the average guy is 5'11", 180, 190, so I'm 6'3", I'm 240 pounds. The difference would mean I would have to fight Shaquille O'Neal. Like, that's the difference for them. And then the strength differences. So that maybe they're even more brave than us because they're going up against people who are much larger than them, putting them in more danger, and yet they still choose to do the job. So I have a lot of respect, and we all can learn.
That's a great point. There's the old saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
100%. And you just never know. And I've heard that I got a neighbor that's a U.S. Marine, fought in some pretty bad battles in Vietnam. And he's like, man, there was some guys, I forgot, it's boot camp or basic. You don't want to get those too messed up with those guys. But he said that you never would have thought were the heroes. But when we got overrun, that guy was going to town with a shovel. They called it an e-tool. And he's like, you never know who the heroes are. So you just cannot judge anybody. The whole Richard Flaherty story, 4'9" guy who's homeless. You can't judge a book by its cover. My last book, which I just finished up, I just released it a few weeks ago, is called Spy, Lie, and Defy, The Untold True Stories of World War II Heroes. I actually covered one of those heroes in my book, Woman in War, And it was just so fascinating. These are not military women. These are not women from really bad situations. Most of them were affluent women who chose to go into World War II, be either inserted by submarine, parachute in the middle of the night in France behind enemy lines to gather information, to create safe houses, to help resistance fighters, to get information for the landing of D-Day. And a lot of them did not make it out. A lot of them were tortured. They went to concentration camps. How in the world did I just start learning about this group of women? How do you
Mhm.
get more brave than that? You didn't sign up for the military. You're pretty affluent. You live in a nice house, but freedom means that much to you that you're going to go as a woman. Like, what happens if you get captured? I mean, it sucks for
Mhm.
both of us. We get captured, but there are some certain differences if a woman gets captured. Um, and you just can't think of a more incredible, more brave group of people. So I wanted to feature them in that book, and we'll see how it does.
Oh, God bless you. That's amazing. So, what do you feel like? Is this a calling for you? Is this a passion, or what's your drive in doing this?
I really do enjoy it. I mean, that old saying, if you do what you love, you never work a day of your life. I haven't worked since I retired. This is like it's like a hobby that I really enjoy. There's nothing forced. There's no pressure on me. There's no I do this because I enjoy it. I do it 7 days a week. I have the discipline, which if you want to get somewhere in life, have discipline. 7 days a week. I get up, I have my coffee, I start looking for really stories that interest me, and I start researching. Then I pass them on to the people who follow my pages. And I don't do big advertising, ask people to buy my books. I say, if you like my writing, then trust me on my book. But I don't just put covers of my book on every post and like buy my no. The reader is giving me his time. Your time is valuable. Let me prove to you that I feel I can find compelling stories, and then I can put them in a way that you would find interesting, because time is the only thing we have. Money, everything else means shit. Time is everything, and it's going by fast.
My dad said, "Don't blink." That was one of
No,
the
man,
things
I
he
used
drilled
to
in
have
my
hair.
head.
There was a time I had hair, and I didn't look
You
like
still do.
Danny Caballero.
Yeah, I just got mine cut for the podcast just for you to look good, you know?
Looking sharp, my man, looking sharp.
Not bad for 50, you know?
Hey,
Hey,
that's
working on it,
yeah, man.
trying to be fit and 50. And that's the thing I think you keyed on too right there in your last few comments was discipline and just keep working.
Yeah,
How do you
yeah, I'm sorry for jumping on you there, but
Yeah.
yeah, retirement could be a dangerous thing for everyone, for cops, for regular people. Human beings are not really meant to stop working and just float around. We need something to kind of keep us tethered in that discipline. So you don't specifically have to work a job, but you have to have a routine, because otherwise our brains don't work. They're just floating around. So that is my discipline, and I stick to it. If I was sick the night before and had the flu and I didn't sleep, I get up at this time and I do this. It's just, it keeps me tethered.
Well, that's good, yeah, I get a saying I use with some other SF friends, everything, "Screw it, just do it."
Yeah.
You know, and
Big,
just you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. You just gotta still do it. Screw it, just do it. Whether you're tired, you have a headache or whatever. Now, granted, you don't wanna push yourself too hard sometimes. You
yeah.
do need to, refill your cup, but
Well, my work, Daniel, my fat ass is on a chair with a cup of coffee, so it's not too brutal, even when I'm not in the mood. It's not like I'm shoveling snow, but I'm writing and I'm researching, so it's great. I'm really at an interesting point in my life where I've worn so many different masks throughout my life, been so many different people, from a skinny little kid in Brooklyn growing up, getting his ass kicked, to playing football and then being a football guy, to then working security in nightclubs and being that guy, to then being a cop. I mean, these are masks. It's not who you are. You're wearing a
Mhm,
different mask. I'm at a point of gratitude in my life. I really appreciate things a lot more. I'm on the other side of 50 like you. So, time is really important. And if it's going to go this fast, I want to make sure I have gratitude. I see a lot of my friends who we were all pretty not doing so well financially, who made it, and they're still angry.
mhm,
And I'm like, bro, you're a sore winner.
mm.
like, have some gratitude. Like, you have 2 houses, you have a boat, we had nothing. We dug dirt when we were kids. Why aren't you happy? So, don't be a sore winner, have gratitude. Um, I had some injuries along the way that taught me gratitude. You're going to learn it in all different ways. And I kind of feel blessed because maybe without the injuries, maybe I wouldn't have grown as a person. But they kind of slow you down. They make you think about things, and you got to learn how to change and adapt. And
So you're mentioning gratitude a lot. You said like the word gratitude like 3 times or 4 times there in that explanation. What is the power of gratitude to you? Like, what does gratitude do?
it you have such a great feeling of peace come over you when you feel gratitude. It just really is such a reset button. We're all irritated, we're all this, we're all that, but you're like, holy shit, you walk outside and it's nice. You're breathing fresh air. Oh man, I got a decent car. What am I going to do? I'm going to eat something. All these little things that you have gratitude for and be in the moment and appreciate it. It really just gives you a great feeling, a feeling like nothing else, gratitude. It's the best gift you can give yourself. I know you're thinking gratitude is for other. No, it's for you. When you feel gratitude, you just feel a peace.
Yes, I think that's definitely something that if you can reframe your thinking, like, oh, this sucks, or like, oh, my car got a flat tire or whatever, be grateful you have a car.
Yeah.
Be grateful the engine didn't blow. Like
Oh.
there's so many different ways that you can change and reshape your thinking so that you can use gratitude as a tool to have that peace that you're talking
Yeah, that's
about.
all I want is peace. I talk a lot about that with people, and that my inner peace is really important to me right now. I try to live a much smaller life, much quieter life than I used to throughout my life, but it gives me more peace. I have more control of things. And the more I learn, the less I want. I go to the park and I walk in the trees. That's more than enough for me. Like, I'm super happy. Like, oh my God, trees and walking birds,
You're
stuff
going to
that
start living in the park too?
I listen, I'm going to turn into the Buddha and say, I'm not trying to get all hippity dippity,
Yeah.
but I live my life and fast forward. Everything flew by. I was a wild kid. I was this, I was that. I'm in a different stage and I just want to enjoy it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, talk to me a little bit about what you do for speaking and getting out there and helping mentor people or sharing your message.
Actually, I've never really pushed that aspect. That I do get invited on podcasts every once in a while. I do have my social media pages. I have like a TikTok account, and I'll answer questions. People ask me cop questions, and I'll answer cop questions as honestly as I possibly can to inform the public what it's like from our side. But as far as like I don't know. I don't like I get all the time. I get questions about politics. Well, what do you think about this guy? I don't think I'm smart enough to tell you who to vote for, what to do with your life. Now, I don't feel qualified to give you that opinion. I just want to talk about stuff that I know, writing books, all the things in my wheelhouse. But I think sometimes people take on these mentor things, and I'm not. I don't feel I'm important enough or smart enough to be a mentor. I can pass on knowledge to younger guys. Like, if I'm in the gym and I see younger guys doing stupid stuff, I like to tell them because I remember being a young kid doing stupid stuff in the gym, and your shoulders killing you for the rest of your life. So little things like that, and maybe people who are getting into too many confrontations, say, hey man, slow it down. You want to fight? Go to a boxing gym and fight. Get it out of your system. But constantly getting into conflict with people, it's you. It's not everybody. Yeah, that's how you know. Is it me or is it, well, if you're fighting with everybody, it's you. It's one or two people, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the person that's been divorced 5 times. You're like,
And maybe it's
what's the
you.
common theme?
Yeah. Well, you might want to take a look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Take
it's,
some ownership,
yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's one of the things I try and share with people. You gotta take ownership in life. And
Hey,
I
let,
love
let
that
me
you're
shit on,
doing
let me
that.
shit on some of the special forces guys while I'm here.
All right, go ahead.
Let me shit on some of those guys. I'll tell you what, guys. So out of all the groups, I mean, the Green Berets are, I hate to say it, are probably the coolest. You guys, the Green Berets are the most laid back, like easy to. Some of you guys, you Army Ranger guys, man, you guys are real at it. You're real headstrong. You're real. The Marine guys are definitely off. But my Green Berets, my quiet professionals, I'm hanging out with you guys having a beer. The rest of you guys are too rowdy. The rest of those special forces, the Green Beret guys are all pretty low key
Yeah, for the most
for the
part. For
most
the
part.
most part, we
Yeah.
have a few that are
I'm sure, but
or some moments, or depending on the party.
yeah,
But
yeah,
no,
yeah.
yeah, it's an incredible group of human beings, and I'm so honored and humbled to have served with them the time I did. Some of my friends that I have that are close friends that have done amazing things. Certain friends I've lost,
Yeah.
but like it's I it drives me to be a better man. I think that's the best way I can
So
sum it up.
so
Like,
so
these are such great people doing selfless service to give everything to try and make the world a better place,
yeah.
you know? And I
I
think
think
what you were saying too about police officers that come in for the right reasons,
yeah,
they're cut from a similar cloth.
yeah.
Like, you're going there to serve people. That's what you said, to help people. You're not there to just arrest people and throw them in jail. You're there to serve and protect.
Any cop that comes up to you, whatever the situation, doesn't say, "How can I help you, sir?" Or "Can you please tell me, sir, what the problem is?" If he ain't starting out or she ain't starting out with that, there's a problem. Because I work for you. You don't work for me. "Hey, sir, can I talk to you for a second? Sir, you wanna explain to me what's going on? Sir," it should always start that conversation or should always start that way. Shouldn't be like, "Here, come here. Give me your license. You stand over there." No, you work for these people. Can you beat somebody's ass? If it's necessary, yes. But you better be a gentleman first, and try to use everything else you have before that, all your tools.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the difference between just, a regular cop and a great cop. Because the ones that do that, man, it's the old saying, you get more flies
Flies,
with honey
honey,
than vinegar, you
by
know?
the end of my career, I could talk you into doing anything. By the end of my career, I needed you to do something. I'd never had to put my hand on you. I didn't have to use my taser. I didn't have. If you're a cop and you're still putting your hands on people, 15, I'm not saying occasionally somebody, you got to put your
Yeah,
hands up,
yeah.
but you should be able to convince a person to do anything you need them to do with just your intellect by the end of your career. Otherwise, you didn't learn shit.
Yeah, no, great things. So I got a question here that I want to ask you. It says, faith and resilience seem deeply woven into your message and what you're doing and talking about. How did your personal struggles reshape your relationship with both?
I didn't I didn't grow up with faith or religion in my household. I came from a very loving family, but we never talked much about faith or resilience. I think where I learned about faith and resilience was just from watching people, from having good people in my life. I think I'm not shitting on too many religious leaders, but I think people will follow what you do a lot more than what you say. So if you want to be a great leader, religious leader, politician, then do the right thing all the time. Show people you're doing the right thing. So I think I got really lucky with some good mentors that kind of helped me with faith and resilience through my life and had some great role models and people that came into my life. Man, I mean, every like Richard Flaherty was a mentor for me, and it
Mm.
never stops. I'm 57 years old, and I still have mentors. There's a doctor that works. He's a retired doctor in my gym, and he's taught me stoicism. I don't know what stoicism is, but he's
Mm.
taught it to me, and I'm like, oh my god, he's stoic. I need that, and I've just been studying him. And stoic is like nothing really throws him off. Nothing really. He's composed at all times. You don't control his emotions. Whatever issue you pop up, that's on you. And I'm like, that's another mentor. And yeah, the other he's taught me a lot of things like with business. Hey man, I got this idea. Should I write the book and then do it? He goes, don't tell me. Just do it. Just if you have a dream and you have a plan, don't go telling 1,000 people. Just go do it. Then we can talk about what happened, but don't just go around, because all you're going to do is look for people to convince you not to do it. So
Mm.
mentors, faith, resiliency, look for those people who are doing it as opposed to the people who want to teach you how to do it. Those teachers aren't sometimes the best ones. Look for a doer, a role model.
Yeah, I talk about that in my personal book. There's talkers and then there's doers.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, and
You can.
it's not that you can't coach an NFL team if you didn't play football, but it helps, that you've been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, I gotta thank you so much for taking time out of your day and time in general to share the stories you do, because I think you're highlighting the amazing character of some human beings and what they do in the world and their stories that are, in a sense, legendary and people do need to hear. So you're doing great work. Grateful for your service, as a police officer, helping make the world a better place. And I think that's amazing. And if anybody out there, you heard or got anything here that touched you or think it will touch someone else, please like, follow, and share this with someone else. We're doing good things and good work. So just give us a like and send us some positivity so we can keep putting the positivity out there. And of course, you can find a link in the description for The Giant Killer and David's other books. And David, is there anything else you'd like to wrap up with before we go?
You were just thanking me. I want to thank the military community for allowing me to come in without ever serving a day in my life, for taking me in as a brother. The men of the 101st Airborne that invited me to their reunions, that didn't say, well, he didn't serve. They come have a beer with us over here. We'll tell you some stories. To the Green Berets now, you, Denny, uh, the the people who gave so much, who asked for so little, should be recognized. And I'm going to try to do my best to make sure they're not forgotten.
Well, brother, you're doing it. Thank you. And everybody out there, don't forget, always, no matter what, own your power.